Mark of the Beast, Part 19. Eye in the Sky. In our Mark of the Beast series, we have stressed the idea that while the Mark of the Beast might end up being one specific thing, like a mark in the hand or a mark on the forehead, it's important to stress that the mark is part of a massive agenda called technocracy, a totalitarian scientific dictatorship. This one world system will be forced through economic coercion by an empire, or, to use prophetic terminology, by a beast. Please refer to Part 2 for more information on the beast. As we have reiterated throughout this series, the mark will be the result of efforts that go all the way back to the Fabian Socialists in 1884, people like Bertrand Russell, social Darwinists like Julian Huxley, and New World Order secret society advocates like H.G. Wells and Cecil Rhodes. George Orwell warned us about what these anti-God, sociopathic idol pushers would someday accomplish. And here we are. Big Brother is now watching you. And watching you watch this video. The Mark of the Beast is the pinnacle of the New World Order's assault on God. And when I talk about God, I'm also referring to natural law, which is the fundamental force of the universe, encompassing free will, individual rights, ancient wisdom, common sense, karma, tradition, and science. The destructive forces pushing the image of the beast agenda want to destroy God and replace God. And to achieve lordship, the Christian Lord must be eliminated. The family must be downgraded, and patriotism repudiated. This has always been done through propaganda, but there was never a way to know whether the brainwashing was actually working. Until now. Today, they are closing the feedback stimulus loop by watching to see whether the propaganda works. And not just whether it works on folks in general. They can now measure whether it worked on you specifically. And if it didn't work, they can modify the message so that it appeals to your specific personality type based on the warehouse of data that they have collected about you. Whether you realize it or not, like a crop, you are being harvested. Your personal data is now known as the next big oil. In fact, OPEC nations like Saudi Arabia have expressed their intentions to invest lots into the smart world of the future. Historically, companies would spend millions of dollars each year trying to find out information, trying to get you to fill out a survey, trying to get you to answer a few questions on the telephone so that they would have information that helps them to market better. But now this information is being harvested from you by companies like Facebook. MoneyConnection.com summarizes how this works. Facebook uses your personal data. Yes, it does. Facebook indeed uses your personal data to make cash. This revelation came from its founder and CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, during the U.S. Senate's Commerce and Judiciary Committees in April 2018. In Zuckerberg's own words, advertisers approach Facebook to target specific types of users. Facebook then targets their advertisements toward these users. The advertiser pays Facebook for this targeted advertising. Denying that Facebook sells user data to advertisers, Zuckerberg says his company only helps their advertisements reach select intended audiences. How Facebook identifies these users? Of course, by keeping tabs on what you post, profiles of your Facebook friends, geographic location, and lots more. They do not have people monitoring your posts. Instead, Facebook deploys robots or bots or crawlers that creep into your Facebook profile. In a very real way, we are no longer the customer of Facebook. We are the product. We are the merchandise being sold. 2 Peter chapter 2 says this well. And through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you. Revelation chapter 18:2 also drives this point home with the idea that someday great Babylon will be selling everything under the sun, all manners of wine, spice, oil, fine flour, beasts, sheep, meat, gold, silver, precious stones, chariots, and, it says, slaves, and the souls of men. We have reached the time in which we are being sold as merchandise. Sadly, modern man seems too conditioned to resist this mind manipulation, and he will in fact stand in line to buy phones that are essentially microphones, cameras, and tracking devices straight out of the nightmare dystopia of Orwell's 1984. 2 Peter 2 verse 19 describes our world exactly. Quote, they promise them freedom, but they themselves are slaves of corruption. For whatever overcomes a man, to that he is enslaved. The irony of this new slavery is not lost on our neo-feudalistic lords of the cyberspace manor. When Zuckerberg introduced Facebook and blew open the doors of privacy, ending online privacy and anonymity with the promise of fame, he honestly remarked that his customers were, quote, dumb Fs. Once again, I implore you to come out of Babylon and flee this matrix while you still have a chance. Facebook now features a new home camera system equipped with voice recognition software and rotating swivel body, tracking you throughout your home like you're some sort of reality TV star. Apparently, people like feeling like they are on the set of the Big Brother TV show, and they don't see the literal fulfillment of 1984's all-seeing telescreen Big Brother, making sure you don't do anything forbidden. A crazy coincidence theorist might say that these parallels are merely side effects and bugs of the technology. Sure, technology has some drawbacks, but surely it wasn't designed to strip us naked of our privacy. Surely it's not being steered to purposely erode our homes from within. It's just a coincidence that Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, DARPA, and the NSA grew up together in Silicon Valley. Or is it a coincidence? There is a long sordid history of the unholy marriage between the military-industrial complex and entertainment technology. Facebook is a prime example of a Trojan horse invented by the military for totalitarian control, but being presented as a harmless diversion. Just prior to the release of Facebook, the government had a project they called LifeLog. Within a few days of closing the LifeLog project, Facebook debuted. LifeLog and Facebook, as we will see, sound like the same thing. LifeLog was a project of the Information Processing Techniques Office of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, of the United States Department of Defense. According to its bid solicitation pamphlet in 2003, it was to be an ontology-based subsystem that captures, stores, and makes accessible the flow of one person's experience in and interactions with the world in order to support a broad spectrum of associates, assistants, and other system capabilities. The objective of the LifeLog concept was, quote, to be able to trace the threads of an individual's life in terms of events, states, and relationships. And it has the ability to, quote, take in all of a subject's experience, from phone numbers dialed and email messages viewed to every breath taken, step made, and place gone. Continuing on from Wikipedia, it says LifeLog aimed to compile a massive electronic database of every activity and relationship a person engages in. This was to include credit card purchases, websites visited, and content of telephone calls and emails sent and received, scans of faxes and postal mail sent and received, instant messages sent and received, books and magazines read, television and radio selections, physical location recorded via wearable GPS sensors, biomedical data captured through wearable sensors. The high-level goal of this data logging was to identify preferences, plans, goals, and other markers of intentionality. Another of DARPA's goals for LifeLog had a predictive function. It sought to find meaningful patterns in the timeline to infer the user's routines, habits, and relationships with other people, organizations, places, and objects, and to exploit these patterns to ease its task. The DARPA program was canceled in late January 2004 after criticism from civil libertarians concerning the privacy implications of the system. But was the project really canceled in late January of 2004? Or was it merely rolled out as Facebook on February 4th, 2004? If you want to know more about this, I suggest you watch The Weird DARPA Facebook Coincidence You Never Heard About by The Corbett Report. If you watched Mark of the Beast Part 12, this Facebook, or lifelog as we should call it, sounds an awful lot like the first IBM computer, which was provided to Hitler by Thomas Watson and used in order to sort people into metadata baskets, and then allow them to round up all the deplorables in one single night. Facebook is the IBM sorting machine on steroids. It is ghettoizing its users and rating them according to their level of threat to the new totalitarian dystopia. Some people might still be asleep and may naively react to this information by saying, "But I'm not doing anything wrong. What do I care if they track and monitor me?" And after all, Obama assured us that they are only storing our metadata. In other words, they are only keeping a summary of who you are and not really interested in the specifics. But we should care about privacy. It is an inalienable right. It is extremely precious and came with a steep price. It is unique to the United States. While privacy is not a specific amendment in the Bill of Rights, one could make an argument that all other rights stand or fall on the right of privacy. How on earth can a free people contain the spread of the fire of government if they cannot write anonymously, cannot meet in secret, cannot conceal information? What good are arms if the government has unhindered knowledge and access to them? Thomas Jefferson summed it up well when he said, "When you abandon freedom to achieve security, you lose both and deserve neither." He also said, "When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty." We know from history that governments will enact exactly as much tyranny as its people will allow them. Even if you are unable to appreciate your inalienable rights, you can still appreciate the dangers and embarrassments introduced through constant surveillance. There are, after all, such things as criminals, and they will take advantage of any information you provide them with. You're posting about your vacation to Aruba. Great. I can go and break in your house today. It's your birthday? Your mom's last name used to be Jackson? Great. I can use your credit card. The invasion of privacy doesn't stop there. Creeps and thieves have hacked into home security systems like Amazon Nest and verbally abused children, turned the thermostat all the way up, and unlocked the doors. There's nothing morally wrong or against the law about making out on a couch or getting naked with someone, but who wants to be watched by a smart device like a phone or a lamp while you're doing personal things? These new household idols, like Amazon Alexa and the Echo device, are able to reach into the past and incriminate you for things that you've said, even a year ago. Devices like Alexa and Echo have already been used in murder trials to provide records of everything said in the house. To anyone familiar with God's Word, this sounds an awful lot like Matthew chapter 12, verse 36 that says, "But I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment." And that is really the point of this chapter. That this is God talking, the omniscient, the omnipresent, who is going to hold us accountable for every word we said. But in this modern age of a totalitarian surveillance, it is the new God that is going to determine what we can and cannot say and do. It is the new God that is going to know everything about us. Proverbs chapter 15 verse 3 says, "The eyes of the Lord are in every place, watching the evil and the good." Through their technocracy, the idol pushers want to usurp the throne of God and take on his role. We're told in Psalms 121 verse 8, "The Lord keeps watch over you as you come and go." But they want to take the place of your Lord. In Psalms 33 we are told, "The eye of the Lord is upon them that fear him." And indeed, they want to become this new Lord, and they want you to fear them. In LifeLog or Facebook, we see another example of the idol pushers replacing God and becoming God themselves by doing God-like things. For example, reading in Revelation chapter 20, it says, "I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books, according to their works." And it used to be very hard to imagine that God could store all of that information in a book and have that ready when the dead were judged. But nowadays, the government and Facebook are keeping those books of you as if they are God themselves. The analogy becomes extra creepy when you consider what they call the place that they are storing all of our information that creates the book of our lives. And that place is called the cloud. Those pushing the worship of the image of the beast always have pagan origins as part of their goals and their desires. For example, they want to become like Horus or Ra, the eye in the sky. And whether the eye of providence on the dollar bill is our supreme creator or whether it is truly Luciferian illumination, it has been hijacked to mean unwarranted surveillance. Our new gods, or new pharaohs, are truly usurping the throne of God. To highlight this idea of omniscient godhood, we need only look at the National Reconnaissance Office flight patches. According to their website, the NRO is the U.S. government agency in charge of designing, building, launching, and maintaining America's intelligence satellites. When the United States needs eyes and ears in critical places where no human can reach, it turns to the NRO. If you've never heard of the NRO, it's because this was only declassified in 1992. Even though it existed since I Dream of Jeannie back in 1961. The NRO is the god in the sky, and according to their flight patch here, they are Semper Vigilans, or always watching. That might sound reassuring if you're on the winning team, until you start to look at some of the symbols on the patches and their messaging. We see, for example, the Eye of Horus that we have been using to describe their dream of becoming gods. We also see the entire earth enclosed in a creepy looking fist. These patches do not offer the "you're in good hands with the NRO" type of message, but we see instead reptilian hands and claws and snakes wrapping around the earth instead. Messages that say in Latin, "never before, never again." Messages that say in English, "nothing is beyond our reach." And also a black operations patch that merely says, "we could tell you, but then we would have to kill you." So we are encouraged not to ask any questions about the Knights Templar patch that has the earth wrapped in a grid or a cage. We also should not ask about the Illuminati all-seeing eye. We spoke in previous sections of the deliberate hiding and misuse of technology and knowledge, and said that that is really the definition of occultism, to hide knowledge. These patches really make it too easy for me to tie in today's mad scientists with the sorcerers, witches, wizards, enchanters, astrologers, and wise men of Babylon and the court of Pharaoh. These mad scientists seem to revel in the power that they have, knowing that you don't know what they're up to. They celebrate and pay homage to the Moloch-looking Minotaur beast, and Set, the god of the Egyptians, as well as Pan, the devil god of the Greeks. Though most of these patches are offensive to anyone who values dignity or Western civilization, a couple of these patches are more odious than the rest. This one, for example, says Supra Sumus, which literally means higher than the Most High. What a spit in God's face this group truly is. And this one really says it all. It is a quote from Caligula, which says, "Let them hate, so long as they fear. They don't care if you hate them, as long as you fear them." If you want to learn more about the symbols found in these patches, some of which are downright satanic in their themes, you might want to visit the website Vigilant Citizen. Coming back to Earth, we can all remember a time in which spying was considered a crime. Wiretapping, for example, was what the Watergate scandal was all about. Today, there are more than 10,000 Watergates occurring per second on any given day in the United States. And meanwhile, Michael Hayden tells his laughing audience, "We don't listen to bad people, we listen to interesting people." The telephone companies have been archiving your call records since 1987. While this might help detectives solve crimes, Do you really want all of your old calls to be remembered even better than you can remember them yourself? Then in 2005, they installed devices in all automobiles in order to be able to know their location. If you are a person who is tracked and traced wherever you go, there is a name for that. It is called a criminal or a prisoner. Following you once you were out of your vehicle then became possible when everyone got cell phones. But by 2013, the spy agencies had stripped bare our texts, emails, and even conversations, as they were able to now store more data than ever. Naturally, they denied it, but eventually it came out, thanks to whistleblowers like Edward Snowden and journalists like Julian Assange from WikiLeaks. If you have any doubt whatsoever about the nightmare in which we are living, I suggest you listen to the interviews conducted with William Binney. William Binney worked at the NSA for more than 30 years and helped build the organization. He left after 30 years as a whistleblower, and during his interviews unveils unbelievable information about the extent to which they spy on the American people and store all of our data. William Binney, Thomas Drake, and Edward Snowden, who all worked at the NSA, released top secret PowerPoints like this one showing the timeline in which the government eventually was able to capture everyone's personal information, starting with the computer data emails of Microsoft and then finally acquiring Apple in 2012. The creepy motto of the NSA is to collect it all and sniff it all. Under the leadership of totalitarians like James Clapper, John Brennan, and Michael Hayden, we have seen George Orwell's 1984 materialize before our eyes, starting with using 9/11 as their excuse. There should honestly be no debate between national security and privacy rights of its citizens. Without privacy rights, there is no nation. And with no nation, there's no need for national security. If there's no privacy, there's no rights. And if there's no rights, there's no republic. Thomas Jefferson said, "There's no justification for taking away individuals' freedom in the guise of public safety." By uttering the word terrorist enough times, the 16 U.S. intelligence agencies, yes, there are 16, have convinced the American people to hand over their privacy under the guise of national security and safety. The reasons for doing this go far beyond making money. They can use this for blackmail to use against their opponents or adversaries, using anything said or done in the past as a reason to manipulate them. They can use it as coercion by slowly narrowing the things that you are allowed to say and do. They can reach into the past and say you did a crime that wasn't even a crime at the time and prosecute you in the present. Finally, this is just old-fashioned intelligence in the military called intel, the idea of knowing your enemy means that you have a specific advantage. What started out as phone records became a slippery slope that proceeded to illegal TSA searches and seizures, stops along the highway, the Patriot Act being used to make sure they know all of the money you have and where that money is. Having cash on your person has become a crime, and you are suspect, and the government is allowed to take away your money if they find you, for example, at an airport with a couple $1,000s in cash. Again, the words of Thomas Jefferson are very prescient. He said, "I think myself that we have more machinery of government than is necessary. Too many parasites living on the labor of the industrious. Big government enough to supply everything you need is big enough to take everything you have." The course of history shows that as government grows, liberty decreases. The two enemies of the people are criminals and government. So let us tie the second down with the chains of the Constitution, so the second will not become the legalized version of the first. Basically, Jefferson is predicting that the government will become a legalized form of criminals unless people are able to use the Constitution to limit the power of that government. Today, it may be that the government is still not allowed to come into your house unannounced, but if it is in your data and in your emails and listening on your phone, then isn't it already inside your house? We know, for example, that every smart device is required to have a back door so that no data is truly private from the government. We know from the example of Trump that everyone is being spied on all the time. What's illegal, according to them, is unmasking us and listening to us as not being anonymous. But they admit that all information is recorded and all information is stored for another date. In case you do commit a crime and you are under investigation, then they can use these FISA warrants to unmask you. There has been a gradual, almost imperceptible theft of every little bit of our privacy. And there is an ever-increasing push for centralization of information and a push for digitization of all our information to get things off of paper and get them into the cyber world. In the cyber world, anything can be edited, anything can be deleted, anything can be modified. They are keeping a record of our life. Google stores everything that we've ever searched, our deepest, darkest, secret searches. Visa and Amazon keep a record of every item we buy. Smart meters are on our homes now, designed to communicate with the smart devices that are coming soon. In this way, they also will be able to harvest data about our daily habits. Do you use grow lights? Are you a night owl? Do you stay up or get up a lot at night? Combined with smart refrigerators, smart coffee makers, smart lights, your mundane habits become a gold mine to the companies that want to sell your data. CIA Director David Petraeus wasn't joking 10 years ago in Wired magazine when he plainly said, "We'll spy on you through your dishwasher." Smart devices emit EMF frequency radiation and have sensors that can tell the outside world, like a hacker or the government, your exact location within your home. In the Vault 7 WikiLeaks, it was shown that Toshiba's smart TVs were actually spy devices that could listen to you without your knowledge. We used to think people were paranoid who put a piece of tape or a sticky note over their cameras, until we heard about Miss America being spied on and saw Zuckerberg puts a piece of tape on his. To the Bible student, we are at a time in which we have a new omniscient God looking down from the sky, watching at us at all times, and we have been stripped bare before this God. It reminds us of Genesis chapter 3, verse 7. Then the eyes of both of them, Adam and Eve, were opened, and they realized that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made covers for themselves. Do we realize that we are naked before these alphabet companies? Are our eyes open to the invasion of our privacy? By taking your face, your photos, your voice, your interests, your likes and dislikes, the telephone has, in a way, stolen your identity. It is like a black mirror, an image or a miniaturized version of you, condensed down into digital bits. It is a robot version of you, which may be why it is called an android. Unfortunately, undue search and seizure, civil asset forfeiture, checkpoints, smart ID travel passes are only the beginning of this nightmare we are about to face. The intelligence organizations like the NSA want to institute pre-crime, anticipatory intelligence that lets them know before a crime takes place. They have huge projects dedicated to geospatial intelligence and predictive analytics, activity-based intelligence. An example of such an invention is Palantir, which sounds a lot like LifeLog, overlaying everything that we do, every communication that we make, every movement that we make. And in many ways, they're just getting started. Their goal is to have 1 billion small 5G towers covering the entire Earth and giving updates every microsecond to the mainframe in order to allow total panopticonic surveillance of every human being. Once this is in place, they will be unstoppable. They will then institute the social score, which is a way of allowing or disallowing you to buy, sell, trade, move about, or express any one of your rights, which will no longer be called rights, but privileges granted to you by the state. If you do things the way you are told to do things, then your social score will go up. If you resist the system, your social score will go down, and you will be prevented from certain privileges. This system has already been instituted in China and is being instituted in England as well. The COVID-19 scare has accelerated the speed at which they can roll this out by using the cell phones to determine whether you were allowed to go to certain areas based on whether you were exposed to CVD. Ordinarily, a free country like the United States would never stand for such a draconian lockdown idea. But the COVID pandemic has been like a totalitarian technocrat's dream come true. Until they are able to convince the public of the mark or the chip, they will have to settle for using the cell phone or the smartphone as a way to control people and institute their social score. Using the excuse that they are just trying to stop the spread of the virus, they are using COVID as an excuse in order to institute track and trace technology where they follow you around and let you know if your phone has been near a contagious person's phone. They are also using it to institute special travel papers for people who have agreed to get vaccinated and can show the proof. They're also using it as a way to give you access, entrance into school or entrance into the mall or into a concert or football game. These, quote, temporary measures to stop the spread of COVID, end quote, are the exact same features of the social score system used in China. In China, your ability to move around and your privileges, that we would call rights, depend on whether you are a good citizen or whether you are resistant to the government. Are you going to be a good social justice warrior, believing in the state and believing in science? Or are you going to be a fundy, a fundamentalist, who is considered bigoted, homophobic, resistant to change? We may be looking at a very small window in which we can still resist by coming out of Babylon, dropping out of their system, and not participating, even though it might seem convenient to do so. Let's take the advice of Romans chapter 12, verse 2, while we still have a chance. Be not conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. There is always more to discuss on this ever-evolving subject, but in summary, we have new omniscient, omnipresent gods who have used the smartphone and social media as Trojan horses in order to herd us into a 1984 type technocracy. Like Adam and Eve, we have bitten the apple, and we are stripped of our privacy as a result. We are not customers, but we are made merchandise of, our very identities or souls being sold in the modern Babylon market. Like the real God, our new masters have a book of life, and they demand that we repent and act according to their social standards, or else suffer the punishment of a poor social score. Will we come out of Babylon while we still have time and cast these Trojan horses to the dung heap? Or will we allow ourselves to be herded into the next horrific phase of the mark of the beast? Please join me next time as we look at Mark of the Beast Part 20, Gods of Thunder.